Thank you. Next is Miss Quincy Whittaker. Is she yet ready to make her submission? Ms. Whittaker, good afternoon. I owe you an apology for misdescribing you as Mr. Whittaker. I do apologise. It was unforgivable. Despite that, I hope I may seek forgiveness.
That's all. Thank you, sir. This opening statement is made on behalf of Mr. John Bird-Monitor. He is here because undercover police officers from the SDS spied on the campaign he and his family had established to obtain accountability for the mistreatment of his son, Trevor, in the custody of the Metropolitan Police. Trevor was diagnosed with brain damage following his arrest by Stoke Newington police officers on New Year's Day 1987, when he was 19 years old. Despite the passage of over 35 years, Trevor's family still do not know what happened to him that day. What they do know is that he disappeared from outside a nightclub at 1:40 a.m. on New Year's Day, was found semi-conscious and badly injured inside a covered car by its owner at 10:40 p.m, and was then, despite the state he was in, arrested by the police for criminal damage to the car and taken into custody. On the 2nd of January 1987, the police concealed Trevor's presence in Stoke Newington police station from John Bird-Monitor when he came looking for him, and over the next 3 days repeatedly prioritised prosecuting him and imprisoning him over investigating who had attacked him and ensuring he received proper medical care in the hospitals to which he was admitted for short periods. After Trevor was eventually admitted to hospital for emergency surgery to remove a blood clot from his brain, a medical report found evidence that he had been beaten multiple times, and the charges were dropped against him on the 8th of January 1987. The Trevor Monagle campaign was set up shortly afterwards to discover what had happened to Trevor and to campaign for a public inquiry. It bore little fruit. Instead, Trevor and his family were constantly harassed by the police. Even Mr. Bird-Monitor, then 79-year-old father and 73-year-old mother, were subject to harassment. Trevor, who remained unwell as a result of the brain damage he suffered, was arrested and charged numerous times with criminal offences during 1987 and 1988. All charges were either discontinued or he was acquitted. In March 1994, Trevor was stabbed 10 times on his way home from a friend's house. Despite there being several witnesses to the killing, no one has ever been brought to justice in connection with his murder. John's discovery in 2014 that the police had used surveillance on the Trevor Monagle campaign during the time that he was trying to find out who was responsible for his son's mistreatment, rather than assist him in his attempts to seek answers and redress, has intensified the pain and trauma he and his family have suffered in a lifetime blighted by tragedy, stonewalling, and the consequences of endemic racism. This inquiry represents John's last chance to find some light in the darkness, to rescue hope from where it is shattered. John's family has suffered other unspeakable tragedies. His son Joseph was shot and killed in February 2013 on Hindley Road in Clapton. 3 individuals were due to stand trial in respect of Joseph's murder, but the prosecution was dropped. An investigation conducted following the family's complaints about the police's handling of the criminal investigation concluded that there were a number of failings. In June 2019, a third of John's sons, David, was fatally stabbed outside his home in North London, having been attacked by men burgling his home. The perpetrators were found guilty in December 2020. John believes that the Trevor Monagle campaign was deliberately targeted by undercover police for seeking answers and justice in respect of police violence, racism, and corruption. He also believes that racism was responsible for the Stoke Newington police officers' treatment of his son and the harassment of Trevor and the rest of the Bird-Monigle family by Stoke Newington police in the years following Trevor's arrest. The failure to explain what happened to Trevor and the lies about whether he was in custody in Stoke Newington police station and the failure to bring the killers of two of his sons to justice. His sincere hope is that the inquiry will achieve three goals for him and for the community as a whole. Firstly, to fully and properly investigate why he and the Trevor Monaghan campaign were targeted for surveillance by the police, instead of being assisted in their quest for information and accountability for Trevor's mistreatment in police custody. Secondly, to stimulate others to come forward to provide information about Trevor's contact with police on New Year's Day 1987 and the killings of his sons, Trevor and Joseph. He appeals to any witnesses to contact his solicitor, Bernard Pierce. And thirdly, to expose racism within the police as the rotten thread that maps these tragedies and police failings together. It is his firm belief that racism was at the heart of the police brutality and corruption that the black community experienced, and which many of the people who found themselves participating in this inquiry were fighting to expose, and that racism underlay the targeting of black justice groups seeking accountability for such police brutality and corruption. In June 2016, John was informed by officers from Operation Hearn that the campaign had been listed in the 1987 SBS annual report as one of the organisations that was directly penetrated or closely monitored during the year under review. He was informed that Operation Hearn could not find any of that intelligence, and that most likely it was destroyed. The inquiry has disclosed to John a number of intelligence reports stretching over 9 years, the first of which is on March 1987, and in it, undercover officer Stefan Scott reported that a leading member of the Hackney Socialist Workers' Party had become involved in the organising committee of the Trevor Monaghan campaign, although he noted that she was somewhat isolated due to her colour and politics, and that the SWP had little influence over the policy and direction of the campaign. He noted the family's extreme distress, and that the campaign's primary objective was that truth and justice should be ascertained by way of the relevant legal processes. They will seek public support only in pursuing their objective, for example, an independent inquiry. Notwithstanding this assessment of the campaign very early on in its inception, it is clear it continued to be spied on for at least the next 9 years. The last intelligence report was in February 1996, and it concerned the preparations for the memorial which would be held on the 2nd anniversary of Trevor's death. It was reported that this order was unlikely. John is aware that undercover officer Mark Jenner, under his cover name Mark Cassidy, had infiltrated the memorial talk that was held by the family on the 1st anniversary of Trevor's murder in March 1995. John considers that this was a gross violation of his family's privacy. His statement describes the pain caused to him, but even in death, the police did not leave Trevor and their family in peace. He believes the spying continued because the police wanted to know if they were getting any closer to finding out what happened to Trevor at the police station. His distress is exacerbated by the evident attitude of the police towards families such as his, and their view, which he believes is based on racism, that any campaign they were involved in might somehow be a catalyst for disorder or unlawfulness. John is particularly concerned that in this 1996 report, for the first time, the campaign has been given a special branch reference number. He seeks to understand why, after the intervening years in which the campaign had gone quiet, should it suddenly have been given the reference number when it had been reported from its inception that the campaign's primary objective was that truth and justice should be ascertained by way of the relevant legal processes. John notes that this report was prepared and reviewed by DCI Keith Edmondson a few weeks before the Metropolitan Police told the coroner at Trevor's resumed inquest that John could not be contacted. This was despite him living at the same address and still working in the shop he'd worked in for 30 years. With the result that he was not aware until August 2016 that the inquest into his son's death had been concluded on a single day in 1996. John is deeply shocked and saddened by what he considers to be a deplorable and gross double standard, whereby covert information is intrusively obtained, while there was no communication with the people who mattered most to Trevor, in particular concerning the judicial inquiry into his death. It has contributed to the total erosion of his trust in the police. In addition to the direct intelligence reports, John believes there is other clear evidence on which the chair should find that the Trevor Monaghan campaign was directly targeted for surveillance by the SDS. Firstly, the Trevor Monaghan campaign is listed as directly penetrated or closely monitored in the 1987 annual report. DCI Tony Waite provided a definition of the word penetrated found within the SDS annual report. He explained that one visit to the group was not enough for it to be considered penetrated. There had to be repeat reporting or attending. John hopes the chair will rigorously investigate the alarming hypothesis advanced by officers from Operation Herne that it was unlikely the campaign was directly penetrated because they couldn't find any of the intelligence that related to it, and that this entirely untrue assertion was made by senior officers in their annual report to the Home Office in order to make the SDS sound more important than they were to justify their work. Presumably, this would have been done in order to obtain continued or increased funding. The evidence of DCI document is that the SDS annual reports were designed to set out the justification for the SDS for the Home Office. This would appear to amount to misconduct. And while Operation Herne were apparently unable to find any intelligence reports relating to the campaign, the chair has been able to consider a number of reports demonstrating that continued to be reported on for 9 years, and which were not available to Operation Herne when its officers provided their startling explanation. John considers that in putting forward this explanation, the MPS were deliberately attempting to minimise the SDS targeting of the campaign and the racism behind that targeting, as they have done throughout all the significant events that he has recounted. John's concern as to why his family had been targeted was dismissed without investigation. He believes that the explanation proffered by Operation Herne officers was merely another instance of the MPS endeavouring to control the narrative of the event, so as to avoid scrutiny on and accountability for the racism that underlay them. Secondly, the absence of any evidence of public order or infiltration by extremists justification in the report. The only reference to public disorder in any report relating to the campaign is that it is unlikely. The MPS have accepted that no public order justification for spying on campaigns, such as that of the Burke Monaghans, can be legitimately relied upon. Reporting on justice and anti-racism groups who pose no criminal or public order threat should not have occurred, and they tell us will not occur today. Similarly, there are no intelligence reports indicating any infiltration by left-wing extremists. The fact that the campaign continued to be spied on for the next 9 years provides strong evidence that it was directly targeted. And thirdly, the practice of the NPS of reporting on anti-racist and police accountability groups in general. The inquiry has received multiple sources of incontrovertible evidence that the SDS targeted groups campaigning against racism and for justice and police accountability. The NPS have acknowledged the indefensibility of this discriminatory policing and its enduring problem of racism. Where, therefore, there is no public order or infiltration by extremist justification, and the NPS, an institutionally racist organisation, can be shown to exhibit an obsessive interest in any group perceived to be anti-police, why would the Trevor Monaghan campaign not have been directly targeted? The only explanation for the spying on the campaign is, like so many of the other non-state law participants to this inquiry, because John and his family were black people seeking justice and accountability for police brutality to their loved one, which in the view of the SDS senior officers made them suspect as anti-police and worthy of spying on. Acceptance of this fact leads to the clear conclusion that the campaign was highly likely to be a direct target of the SDS for this very reason. Turning to spying on police accountability groups generally. The core aspect of the inquiry's remit is to examine the motivation for the undercover police operations, and the chair has acknowledged that he must examine the possibility that the deployments of black justice groups were influenced by conscious or unconscious racism. John Burke Monaghan urges the chair to recognise that racism as a motivation must be at the heart of his investigation. He joins with the many other core participants who have given and will give evidence to this inquiry of their lived experience of racism by the Metropolitan Police Service to exhort the Chair to recognise the fundamental role which the issue of racism played in the targeting of the SDS. Other non-state law participants in this inquiry have set out in detail the evidence of the history of the SDS, demonstrating that almost from its inception, it embarked upon sustained and wide-ranging infiltration of black political and social justice groups, and in particular black groups campaigning for accountability for police brutality, racism and corruption. The extent of the SDS penetration and the material revealed by the inquiry demonstrates that the police justification of collateral intrusion is not tenable. The MPS itself has acknowledged that spying on the anti-racism campaigns, which were attempting to hold the MPS itself accountable for the way in which it policed those communities, was particularly indefensible. In what can only be understood as an acknowledgement of the role that racism played in the surveillance of such campaigns such as the Black Monobill, the MPS that such reporting was discriminatory and unacceptable political policing. The documents show the MPS's wide-ranging mistrust of any group that seeks accountability for police misconduct. All are swept up under the rubric of being anti-police, which of itself is considered a reason to spy on those groups. The extraordinary 1983 Police Accountability Report provides insight into the mindset, including, for instance, groups such as the charity Release, merely because, in light of their libertarian views, they can have little natural sympathy for the group. In 1984, the Home Office released the new Special Branch Terms of Reference, directing chief officers that it is not the function of Special Branch to investigate individuals and groups merely because their policies are unpalatable, or because they're highly critical of the police, or because they want to transform the present system of police accountability. However, it is evident that the SDS routinely continued for decades to investigate individuals and groups precisely because they're highly critical of the police or because they want to transform the present system of police accountability, which must have been evident to the Home Office from the annual reports. This is not mere institutional paranoia. It is the manifestation of a deep-rooted tendency built into the fabric of the NPS to cover up its wrongdoing and avoid accountability to the communities it serves, as institutional as the racism with which it is played. These groups were deliberately targeted in order to undermine them and their objective. This core aversion to accountability and scrutiny is intertwined with the endemic racist attitudes and assumptions evidenced by SDS officers to view those groups from the black community with particular suspicion. Opposition to racism was of itself considered potentially subversive. John believes that the motivation of the police was a desire to derail and discredit the Trevor Monobill campaign attempt to bring to light racist police brutality and harassment, as with other justice groups that were targeted. The NPS acknowledges that the fact that such groups were reported on was a critical failure on the part of the special branch managers. Police accountability groups were directly monitored so that the NPS could find out information that could be used to discredit legitimate campaigns and undermine their attempts to expose police wrongdoing. In John Monobill's case, this tactic took the form of dismissing and ignoring his legitimate concerns. In April 1987, Chief Superintendent Peck publicly apologised to John for the failure to tell him Trevor was being held in Stoke-Newington Police Station, and then started the narrative that's continued to be adopted by the SDS in this inquiry, that he was concerned that the situation was being manipulated by political agitators. At the same time, however, the NPS were refusing to release Trevor's clothes to families so they could be forensically tested. The NPS chose not to use its resources to investigate the corruption, racism and misconduct that the groups such as the Trevor Monobill campaign, specifically in relation to Stoke-Newington police officers, were seeking to highlight, but chose to spy on them instead. Had they engaged in meaningful dialogue, the spurious purported public order justification could easily have been addressed by direct communication and without invasive intrusion and a huge waste of resources deploying undercover officers in this role over decades. It could also have transformed racist policing, saving years of significant trauma for many black families in London, including the Black Monobills. The research by the Public Policy Studies Institute, funded by the NPS, the same year it produced its Police Accountability Report, provides incontrovertible contemporary evidence of the endemic racism that permeated the NPS. The use of racist language and racial prejudice amongst police officers in areas with substantial ethnic minority populations was found to be prominent and pervasive. The authors observed the use of crude, derogatory, racial terms of abuse as a standard practice amongst NPS officers, including in public and on police radio, and found that racist language and prejudice were, on the whole, expected, accepted, and even fashionable. They concluded there can be few other groups other than the Met in which it is normal, habitual, automatic to refer to black people as coons, niggers, and so on. Noting that when a police officer started on a line of racist talk, no one in the group ever exclusively opposed their views or made the officer feel as though he'd spoken inappropriately. The NPS have acknowledged the corrosive effect this type of discriminatory policing has on public trust and accepts that racism and discrimination remain an enduring challenge within. Baroness Casey's recent review of the Met found it continues to be institutionally racist. The Chair will consider in Module 3 the recommendations that should be made for the future. John Burke-Monaghan were asked to put before the inquiry at that stage evidence that goes to the two key issues that spying on his family and other campaigns engaged: racism continuing to infect the NPS and the wholesale failure of the current process of police accountability. And just in conclusion, Mr. Burke-Monaghan's hopes for the inquiry. Mr. Burke-Monaghan has a profound need to discover the truth. He states, "I feel a responsibility to my sons, myself, my family, and my community to ensure that this inquiry comes through with some sort of answers about why we were spied on by the police. We have not been told the truth by anybody in authority about anything all along. I have no reason to be hopeful about this inquiry. No one in authority has given me that. But I do remain hopeful. It is, though, my last hope, and I am tired. I don't want my surviving children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren to go through what we are going through." Mr. Burke-Monaghan and his family have been truly failed by the Metropolitan Police Service in so many ways. He's experienced enormous personal tragedy, which he has borne with immense strength and dignity. He hopes he will not be failed by the inquiry in his search for the truth at this last opportunity. Thank you, Chair.